Hi, I'm Torsten. This is Literature in Pictures, and welcome to episode 4 of my Cosmic Saga by DNA review, first time read through. So I've never read the Cosmic Saga and I tried to avoid spoilers as much as I could. Sometimes I couldn't avoid them because there was Ultron on the cover of the Annihilation Conquest Omnibus, or the Guardians of the Galaxy being on the back. So there are certain things that I couldn't avoid, but what I mostly avoided so far, and I hope that continues, is the major plot points, the major story points of those events, and especially when we get to War of Kings. And that's why today we're going to talk about the road to War of Kings. Know nothing about it other than it collects the initial 12 issues of the Guardians of the Galaxy series that spun out of the events of Annihilation Conquest, a book that I reviewed last week. So if you want to go back, the last video that was published on this channel should be about the Annihilation Conquest. If not, head to the playlist. I'll link to it here as well. But it was part 3 of our Cosmic Saga review. Today we are heading into week 4, part 4, book 4, with Road to War of Kings, the War of Kings prelude. Again, I know nothing about this. This is still sealed. We are gonna open this up and go from there. If you want to stay up to date and enjoy this format, please do subscribe to the channel and hit the bell for notifications so you get notified when I upload next week's video, which will be about War of Kings, basically the main event. Before the week after, in week 6, we head into the Aftermath, Realm of Kings. But we'll kick off the War of Kings trilogy today with Road to War of Kings. Kind of a bridge based on what I believe, what I've read at the end of Annihilation Conquest, because the first 12 issues of Nova were collected in here. We have Nova 13 through 22 in here, and the Guardians of the Galaxy that were formed in here get their own series, their own ongoing series, the 2008 series with 12 issues, the first 12 issues being collected in here to get kicked off. So it really feels, without knowing anything about it, as a bridge between Annihilation Conquest and the War of Kings event. But let's dive in. Road to War of Kings. Annihilation Classic. Annihilation. Annihilation Conquest. Road to War of Kings. War of Kings. Realm of Kings. The Aftermath. After I opened up the Road to War of Kings, I was presented with a larger summary of the events of House of M. So there's a whole page that summarizes House of M. And so before reading this one, Road to War of Kings, I had to do the interlude last week, and we read House of M before now jumping into Road to War of Kings and reviewing the events in this omnibus last week. Please go back and check it out. The link is up here. But now we are finally diving into Road to War of Kings before next week or in 2 weeks. Who knows what fun interlude is going to come up. We are going to review War of Kings, the actual omnibus. But let's dive in to the Road 2. Here we got this beautiful direct market cover of the Inhumans, Medusa and Black Bolt from issue, I believe it is issue 2. But we'll get there when we get there. First of all, let's review the cover as a whole. The dust jacket here, spread out with those beautiful images. I'll put that dust jacket to the side and we'll review this book. The art on board is a mirrored spread page from Guardians of the Galaxy 7. We'll get there and look at it a little bit closer later. But for now, this is the art on board. Again, a mirrored image from within those pages. Actually, since we're talking about this, we'll get there right now. So we'll open this up. Look for Guardians of the Galaxy 7. There, already. All right. And here we have that spread page that is printed in a mirrored way on the board here. Obviously without the text bubbles, but that's the art in the book. And that's the art on board. Beautiful image here by Paul Pelletier. But let's get this book opened, read, bookend pages, and the table of content. So if you've been following this channel and this series, you know that I reviewed House of M last week. Why did I review House of M? Well, there is some aftermath to House of M in here. There is a description of what House of M is about. In hindsight, this would have been sufficient, or at least the main series of House of M would have been sufficient. Didn't have to go and buy the entire omnibus, but we have House of M in here, a summary of House of M within one page, but there's quite some aftermath content in here. So we have Son of M, X-Men Deadly, Genesis, that's a little bit separately, but House of M is being referenced in here because when we get to Deadly Genesis, you'll discover that some of those characters kind of came back by what the Scarlet Witch was doing in House of M. And obviously Quicksilver in Son of M comes right out of the events there from House of M. But not necessarily needed other than the description. That's all you need. It's not going to show up after those initial two series too much, but just want to warn you before you decide going and buying House of M. Not really part of the Cosmic Saga here. But we have then Silent War. We have Secret Invasion Inhumans. Again, this is a mini-series that functions as a tie-in to Secret Invasion. Secret Invasion itself is not collected neither here nor later in the War of Kings omnibus. So if you want to get the entire event, at least the main event, you would have to get that separately. I think you can get that as a trade paperback. The omnibus is completely out of print and goes for horrendous prices. I hope there's going to be a reprint soon. But for now, Secret Invasion, the necessary tie-ins and miniseries are collected in here. And then another one, the War of Kings parts are collected in the next omnibus. In the Road to War of Kings omnibus, we have Secret Invasion Inhumans. That's very relevant. It's also where this image comes from. That's the cover, I think, to issue 2. Let's check that real quick. Nope, not to Secret Invasion Inhumans. It is issue 4. So not issue 2. This is Secret Invasion Inhumans issue 4. That provides the cover image here. Beautiful image by Stepan Sajcik. But then after Secret Invasion Inhumans, we're finally diving into the DNA storyline, Guardians of the Galaxy 1 through 6, Nova 13 through 22, and then continuing Guardians of the Galaxy 7 through 12 before doing a little bit of a backflash here with Nova, the origin of Richard Rider. We'll get there. This is more of an extras section. So those are the extra. I consider those to be the extras with the lead up here, and then kicking off the Guardians of the Galaxy, continuing Nova based on the previous omnibus in Annihilation Conquest that had Nova 1 through 12 collected. But then kind of here, that's what I meant with this is the bridge between Annihilation Conquest and War of Kings, because we're kicking off Guardians of the Galaxy and continuing Nova, finding out where Richard Rider has been in between those events and what happened to the World Mind. But we'll dive right in, not to waste any more time. We kick things off with Son of M. Son of M being a story about Pietro, about Quicksilver, who is still alive, but he has lost his mutant powers. His plan is to use the Terrigen Mist from the Inhumans to get those powers back. So he steals some crystals and kidnaps his daughter Luna. The US military then gets hold of the crystals and refuses to return them to the Inhumans. And obviously that's gonna rub the Inhumans in a bad way. Black Bolt declares war on the United States. See Quicksilver here with crystal, and it's very interesting. I don't think you need to know House of M. You need to know a quick summary. Why is Quicksilver escaping? What he is doing? Why did he lost his powers? But I don't think you need to read the entire omnibus. Anyways, so the Inhumans declare war on the US. Pietro sends Luna back to her mother and keeps experimenting with the mist that he still has. But Pietro has not gotten his speed back, but he's now able to time jump. And that explains why we see two Quicksilvers in here. He's time jumping and doing things he's not supposed to do. And then you have multiple time iterations here. Regardless, the outcome of this storyline kind of sets up, not the next series, not Deadly Genesis, it sets up Silent War and Secret Invasion Inhumans. We're going to get there when we get there. But first, we will review Deadly Genesis. In Deadly Genesis, we have some retconning here. We have retconning of some of the X-Men Krakoa legacy. We're introduced to Kid Vulcan. Or as part of this storyline, we're introduced to Kid Vulcan. And each issue kind of introduces us to someone else. We're being introduced to Sway, to Darwin, to Petra, to Kid Vulcan, and what their role was during the Krakoa era. Darwin here. Again, this video is full of spoilers, so it shouldn't be a surprise to you when I say, well, those characters are rather short-lived. They all die in the end, except for Kid Vulcan, but Darwin, Sway, and Petra die, but Kid Vulcan escapes. We also learn that Professor X is no longer a mutant. So they're actually looking for Professor X. They find him by doing some horrible stuff, kind of luring him out of hiding and realizing that he has no powers anymore. So Vulcan attacks the X-Men and then escapes to space, where he seeks revenge for his parents' murder, which then will become a topic in the actual War of Kings main event, main omnibus. But in here, that's where the X-Men story ends. And yep, we got Sway, Petra, Sean Cassidy, and Darwin, who actually is recovering here. So he dies, but based on his powers, is regenerating. So yes, Professor X has no powers anymore. He is being told to leave by Scott, and he's no longer a mutant. So as a human, he shouldn't be with the mutants anymore. So yeah, Scott kicks him out and takes over the Institute. Yeah, as I mentioned, Kid Vulcan escapes to space to take revenge. We're diving into Silent War. So the beginning is a little bit back and forth, but you need to know those things. Those are all setting up the War of Kings event. But with regards to this omnibus, those are independent storylines. They're all kind of tying back to House of M, the first few at least. And then out of those, again, out of Son of M, we get why now the Inhumans are attacking Earth, trying to take some hostages here, trying to get their crystals back, getting the mist back. But that goes wrong because instead of taking hostages, they end up killing them. And then we have the Fantastic Four interfering, taking those Inhumans that were sent to Earth captive, which obviously then triggers Black Bolt and Medusa can't read Black Bolt anymore, and he has to intervene. And that shows us that it's a new situation for Black Bolt, uncharted territory kind of, where they are no longer aligned, where Black Bolt is kind of driven also by his emotions, not behaving the way he would have behaved in the past, but going different ways here. Also, perhaps corrupted by his brother. Meanwhile, on Earth, they're experimenting on the Inhumans. What if they are exposed twice to the mist and those mutations are no longer, well, beneficial, healthy? I don't know how you want to call it, but they're even further removed from being human. They're already Inhumans, but I don't think that's a desired stage here. Regardless, while the Inhumans are trying to retrieve the mist, the Terrigen mist, we have Quicksilver, who also kept parts of those crystals for himself. We learn what happens to humans when they get exposed to the mist. Yes, they get some superpowers, but they don't last long. They end up dying. So it's definitely not helpful. Maximus, who is in prison, trying to talk his way out of it, trying to convince Medusa to free him. And so the war between Inhumans and humans unfold. The humans modify Marines with the mist, trying to fight back against the Inhumans. Again, side story here, we have Quicksilver, who kept some crystals and kind of pressed them into his own body. Again, he does everything he can to get stronger, to get his powers back. In this case, actually, he does again have super speed and can run away. He says he could have run away, but also was told not to in order to prevent his own death. It's not clear what kind of powers he possesses after this. And Maximus in Medusa's head here, manipulating her, and Black Bolt finding out about her betrayal. First stage here, later on even worse, when she kisses Maximus, and Black Bolt going nuts, leaving just to let out his scream, after that being captured by the Skrulls, which we're going to get into later. Here we realize that the humans are going to die, but before they die, they infiltrate the moon, they infiltrate the Inhumans and set off a suicide bomb that then will completely destroy Attilan. In the aftermath of this event, we have the Inhumans now being ruled by Maximus because, yes, Black Bolt is gone, is captured. Actually, later on, that doesn't happen in here. We don't have the Illuminati in here, but he is being captured and replaced by a Skrull as part of Secret Invasions. That aftermath or that revelation will happen here in the Secret Invasions Inhumans tie-in. But yeah, here we have the humans completely destroying Attilan. Left to shambles. That was foretold. I really like the storyline. I like how each mini series builds on top of each other. I mean, we have House of M, we have Quicksilver running, Quicksilver stealing the mist, the US not giving the mist back, and then that setting of the war that will destroy Attilan. Therefore, we have now different rulers of the Inhumans, and leading us to a secret invasion. And now we have the Skrulls being involved in that plan, in that war, in that currently still their invasion of Earth, but they are also invading others. We have multiple tie-ins here, and obviously the Kree play a role later on, but the Inhumans here as well. Again, part of this event, the Secret Invasion Inhumans event, is that the Inhumans built an alliance with the Kree because that is to rescue Black Bolt from the Skrulls. The Skrulls have kidnapped Black Bolt, his wife Medusa, and King Maximus declare war on the Skrulls. They have infiltrated the Inhumans as well as the humans, as well as the Kree. They ask Ronan the Accuser for help, who does help, but under one condition, under the condition that he gets to marry Crystal. She first refuses, but then later realizes that she has to do her part. So Crystal marrying Ronan helping out the Inhumans, assisting them. And I love this line, like the Inhumans are kind of at a disadvantage here, but then the Kree show up, and fully unexpected, Ronan then also does his part, his side of the bargain, who says an alliance is an alliance. So you have that bond between Inhumans and Kree. Which then gets us back to the Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning cosmic event. Guardians of the Galaxy kicks off with issue 1. In Guardians of the Galaxy, we pick up the day after, so we jump back in time, kind of picking up the day after the Phalanx conquest that we saw in Annihilation Conquest Omnibus. And Drax finally mourning his daughter Heather, aka Moondragon. So that part that was missing in that omnibus, I felt Drax was not really acknowledging the death of his own daughter. We get that in here, actually. So they kept that for this part, admitting that Heather and him never had a regular father-daughter thing, but yet she was still his daughter. And so the team breaks apart-ish. So we have Quasar in this iteration, Phyla Val and Drax going off, doing their thing. We have Peter Quill who does a separate thing. And then we have some other characters now forming the new Guardians of the Galaxy. But yeah, Nova, Richard Rider declines to quickly rebuild the Nova Corps. And so Peter Quill takes on that task of rebuilding a team, of which in the end they end up naming the Guardians of the Galaxy. But it's kind of, they need a Space Force that is there when help is needed, attending to those calls. And since Nova is refusing to build a Nova Corps, Peter Quill kind of takes on that task and needs to build a team. He does build a team, and the Guardians of the Galaxy are formed. That new team has Peter Quill, aka Star-Lord, Phyla Val as Quasar. We have Gamora and Rocket Raccoon. We have Adam Warlock. And of course, we have Drax. In addition to those 6 characters, we have some others that are helping them in the background. We have Mantis, who's taking care of Groot, who's like a hatchling after the events of Annihilation Conquest. That changes in this book. But at this point, he's a hatchling. So Mantis takes care of him. And then we have Cosmo helping out as well, coordinating, not really part of the team, but functioning as an aide, as assistant in the background. But they find Vance, major victory. Frozen in limbo ice, hunted by Starhawk. They battle against the Universal Church of Truth, who takes a blood sample of Adam Warlock. And those storylines are starting to run in parallel. So, because what happens here? What happens is the team learns that Peter used Mantis to manipulate them into joining the team in the first place, and they get upset and they break apart. Them getting on with those different storylines doesn't happen until the second party, until Guardians of the Galaxy issue 7. But yeah, the kickoff 1 through 6 is a little bit more of an introduction to the team and them following different agendas for different calls. We have as a tie-in with the Skrulls here. It felt like they didn't really want, DNA didn't really want to be part of the Secret Invasion, Skrull Invasion storyline. So the Skrull Invasion ends up actually being a misunderstanding, that the Skrulls that are in Nowhere are actually there with no ill intent, and they are more like refugees. So it's a 2-issue story arc that, could have been left out. But throughout, again, those pages and throughout this story arc, the team learns of Peter Quill manipulating them using Mantis, which again starts setting up the team breaking apart. That then later on will be relevant because of the different storylines they follow, which we'll get there in a second after we jump into Nova. And Nova here being the story about Richard Rider and how he came from Annihilation Conquest with the World Mind in his brain or in his mind embedded in there, doing all of those things to the end of it where he basically is left without any powers. All right, that's basically all of Nova here. So we kick things off with Richard helping a civilization evacuate a planet eaten by Galactus. And Galactus doesn't wait. He doesn't wait for the population to leave the planet. He starts munching. And we have Nova trying to reach him, asking him just not to stop, but to delay the process because they need a couple more hours or 3-4 hours more. And first he gets attacked by the Silver Surfer, but the Silver Surfer does understand his request, and therefore he grants him that delay for Richard Rider, for Nova, to help with the evacuation, getting everyone out of there safely. In the process, he does learn that there's this parasitic entity that hitchhikes on Galactus's ship and kind of feeds off the fear, taking hostage of other beings' minds. And obviously that's not in Galactus's interest, this guy here. And he goes and tells the Silver Surfer. Obviously Galactus absolutely not liking this. And Galactus makes the problem go away, if you want to say it like that. So the problem now is that Nova is left on the planet without time to escape. Galactus, though, transports Nova and the Silver Surfer out, so he's safe. But what the World Mind now realizes is that Richard Rider does not listen to the World Mind. The World Mind's safety and Xandar's legacy is not first priority to Richard Rider, and the World Mind goes on and recruits a new Nova Corps without Richard's knowledge. In those pages, we also get the return of Quasar, original Wendell Vaughn Quasar. It doesn't last too long. He only appears as like an energy entity, not in his actual body, because the body was disintegrated in Annihilation by the Annihilation wave. But we have the revelation to Richard here that there is a new Nova Corps that started getting recruited. And it's not only them, right? It's It's not down to just those 5. And we have a mission here where they help out, are successful. Richard learns that they can be trusted. But that's not all the World Mind does. They actually have recruited a whole new Nova Corps. And again, the argument here is that Richard Rider's judgment cannot be trusted. And it keeps getting worse. Or no, I don't know if I should say it keeps getting worse, but it goes a different direction that Richard would have wanted. Because not only has there been a Nova Corps recruited without his knowledge now, World Mind explains fairly well why that had to be done. But at some point we have Ego, the living planet, show up on Earth, and then Nova thinking that's a problem. It was actually the World Mind calling Ego and kind of planning on setting up a base there. So the World Mind has its own agenda, and it starts mistrusting Richard, not telling Richard things anymore. And Richard, having still continuing his resistance, he ends up with the World Mind removing the Nova Force from him. And any other powers that were given to Richard in the first place, and the World Mind sends Richard back to Earth. But then we realize that the World Mind isn't really that honest either. So we have the World Mind recruiting humans forcefully. And why humans? Because Richard was human. The World Mind has been able to study Richard's anatomy and how his brain works. And so it's easier to corrupt the minds of humans than other species. And the World Mind just manipulates them, doesn't give them a choice. The World Mind just picks humans and builds a Nova Corps. So it's actually the World Mind that kind of got a little bit insane throughout the symbiote bondage between Richard and the World Mind. It was said that Richard might go insane, but we learned that it actually is the World Mind who is going a little bit crazy right now. We also find out that Richard only has 48 hours to live because his body has been damaged by the World Mind inhabiting his body for that long. But that's where we leave Nova and Richard Rider. And we're going to jump back into the Guardians of the Galaxy. And as I mentioned, the team has been broken up by the mistrust there by Peter, using Mantis to manipulate them in joining the team. And we have now different storylines. The new Guardians of the Galaxy are now formed by Rocket, Mantis, Groot, Bug, and Major Victory. Yep, they got Bug back. And Groot kind of grew up quickly here. And Major Victory is still with the team. So we got the new Guardians of the Galaxy, all while other players are going and doing their own things. So we have Adam and Gamora fighting the Universal Church of Truth. We have Drax and Quasar, who are looking for Heather, for, well, basically Drax's daughter and Quasar's girlfriend. Both Heather, like that's one the same person if you've paid attention in the last video in the Annihilation Conquest overview. We also have Peter Quill, who goes back to Hala, but then Ronan is not as forgiving as he might have thought he would be, and then Peter gets sent to the negative zone where he's facing Blastar. Blastar is trying to get Peter to help him in creating a portal to Earth so he can leave the negative zone and infiltrate Earth. Well, great idea. Peter doesn't play along, and we'll see what happens here. Because later on, they are being, again, joined by others. So jump back to the Guardians, battling it out. So those main three storylines are running in parallel here. Again, Gamora and Adam Warlock trying to fight the Church, with the Church taking a blood sample here from Adam, because he's also said to be their savior. Peter being sent to prison, but they don't play along. The inmates don't play along. The only one who is actually Jack Flag, who later on joins the Guardians. And he's the only one who like gets Peter. He gets what the plan is. Everyone else just, no, like, let them in. We want to go back to Earth, or we want to survive this. And we don't care. So let Blaster in and get him to the portal. And we don't care. Jack Flag is the only one that doesn't agree with that plan. But here back to Drax and Quasar trying to find Heather. They're being killed by Mentor, but that is actually his plan isn't to kill them. His plan is to send them to where Heather is. But then it's not only Heather who is there, it's also Maelstrom, who is in this afterlife-ish void. So Maelstrom, which then calls, okay, we'll get to the end of this issue, but this in the next issue we see how him abusing the quantum bands calls the original Quasar, and we have the energy form of Vandelvon here that helps Phyla-Vell and Drax defeat Maelstrom and get Heather, that has become the Moon Dragon, the Dragon of the Moon. And it's not really clear how she now separated from the dragon, because they were like one before, but we learned that Phyla-Vell actually gets eaten and then rescues Heather out of the belly of the dragon. We'll just roll with that. Heather's back. So everyone is relieved. Drax got his daughter back. Phyla-Vell got her girlfriend back. And Heather is back. How do they make it back to this world? Because they're in this void. Well, she said we just have to wake up. Well, just have to wake up. Okay, well, again, let's roll with it. And they are back in this universe. All good? All good. What we learn is that Phyla-Vell kind of had to make a trade. She had to give Maelstrom something. The others don't know that yet, but what happened was that Maelstrom was able to bring Death back and give a new avatar to Oblivion. And that's how this part ends. Again, I mentioned earlier that we get some extras here. Those extras are interesting. So let's dive into the origin of Richard Rider, which is basically just a republishing. Okay, we have some fill-in pages similar to God Loves, Man Kills, the few pages that were written in modern times, because the majority of this issue is just a reprint of Richard Rider's first appearance. There's something about this reprint though. It has new colors. So if you remember us looking back, go back to week 1 and go back when we reviewed Annihilation Classic. Annihilation Classic collects the same storyline. So it collects those issues, the first appearance of Richard Rider. I want to do a comparison here. So you get this and kind of want to look at this with you together. All right, we got here the original colors in Annihilation Classic, and then in this omnibus here we got updated colors and shading and inking and all of that. So here on the left you see the original colors, and on the right the updated colors. So sometimes it's not as different other than some shading here. But then some colors got changed. So if you want to see the 5 is blue here, purple here, matching the uniform. But there's some more interesting stuff if we switch next few pages. Well, first of all, the pages don't line up anymore, right? You have, I don't know how the original was. I assume that the original was like this, with the first page starting on the right side, how those comics start. But in this omnibus, you have the first page on the left, and that stays like that. It's not as important, I guess, because you don't have spread pages, but it stays out of order. Not out of order, the order is the same, but You know what I mean? In this one, this is the left page, and here it's the right page. And some big color differences here. I'll switch because, again, the pages are on the other side. But you got the new colors here and the original colors here, way more colorful, obviously, at that time, the style of that time. And a more realistic view here that doesn't really pop the same way, though. But there's also stuff that I like, which is the Doctor here, because when he sees the Doctor, which Doctor has a brown coat on? Like, I don't think the colors here in the original match too much. The Doctor wouldn't have a brown coat. No, he would have a white coat. That's how Doctors look like. And so I like that part. So updated colors that match more what things would have been, should have been. But then kind of toning down of some colors here as well, compared to the original colors. And then to give you one more example, switching them back again, left to right, old colors, new colors, way more realistic. But again, the colors kind of change. Black jacket, brown jacket, red shirt, green shirt. I don't know why they're updating that one. Purple jacket, green jacket, just changing the colors for no reason in this case. Overall, with the inking, with the shading, this looks more realistic. This is just normal flat tones. But again, I don't necessarily get the whole, let's switch everyone's shirt color. But that's basically what you collect in here. You have that collected already in the Annihilation Classic book. If you got that one in week 1 and have that one already, you can probably skip this other than looking at the new colors. But there's more in here, which is the end here, another page where the World Mind now shows Richard from the beginnings to kind of where he for the first time interacted with another superhero, where he met Thor, and where he went head to head with a corrupted Thor. And after the corruption was gone, he partnered up with Thor to fight evil, and kind of went toe to toe with him and kept up with that. And it kind of the first time where Richard Rider was described to be at the same level as those Avenger level high tier superheroes. But yeah, that's basically the end of that. We get a summary, which is very interesting. The War of Kings saga here. It's a summary of how we came to this place, kind of summary of this book. But halfway through, we're kind of moving ahead and already moving into what the X-Men were up to and what King Vulcan has been doing, which isn't happening until we get to the main event, until we get to War of Kings. So if you haven't read the War of Kings, I don't recommend to read the entire saga, summary saga here in the end. So that being said, I don't know why they put it in here instead of somewhere else, but I guess they should have put a warning, like spoilers for the next book ahead. Regardless, so those are the extras. Then we have some covers, alternative covers here that are pretty cool, like that one. Some art, the creative process, and so on. So just going through those pages here. Deadly Genesis in the making, Polaris and Havoc, Nightcrawler, and so on. Beautiful image here. Guardians of the Galaxy 1, pages 2 and 3, pencils. That was my review. Let's head over to the table for the outro. This was my review of Road to War of Kings, the Omnibus that came out in 2017. And Definitely a bunch of great stories in here, better than my interlude of reading House of M that I realized it wasn't necessarily needed. I thought it was based on how this omnibus here started. Don't be fooled. If you want to read House of M, I recommend just reading the main event, not the entire omnibus, because the tyrants, again, don't really fit in here. But with regards to this book, it was a great build-up, a great bridge to the main event, War of Kings. Again, it gives you a great overview of what happened to those characters after the Annihilation Conquest Omnibus, how the Guardians of the Galaxy were formed, how Nova actually separated from the world mind, what the X-Men have been up to, what kind of dark secrets in their past got uncovered, and what led them to be where they are. The Inhumans, the shift of how Black Bolt ended up being where he is, how Maximus came out of prison, and how they're both ruling now. So all of that is in this omnibus. Road to War of Kings, again, just to build up to the actual main event, right behind me here. That's what we're gonna read next-ish, because I do actually want to go somewhere else first. But in this Modern Cosmic Saga by DNA reading order would be War of Kings next, before then going to the Aftermath. That being said, I think I realized that Secret Invasion is more relevant to this whole event than House of M was. With House of M, it's good to know where Quicksilver came from and how he kind of got to the point of escaping to the Inhumans and why he was there, and then kind of those events leading up to him stealing the crystals, then Earth keeping them, and so on. That's kicking off the whole Inhumans versus Earth war. But there are many tie-ins collected in here. The Secret Invasion Inhumans tie-ins or miniseries is collected in here. There are more tie-ins or miniseries collected in here, which is Secret Invasion War of Kings. So I actually want to read the main event, Secret Invasion, first before diving into War of Kings. I think most of the events there happen in parallel to Road to War of Kings. So I'm gonna, since I finished this one, I want to read Secret Invasion 1 through 8 now, and then I'm gonna dive deeper into War of Kings. Again, thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned. Next week is gonna be another video, whether that's an interlude or we're jumping right in here. You'll see, based on what I've been saying so far, I'm sure you know it's gonna be an interlude. And then I'll jump over there soon and crack this open in one of the next videos. First of all, I want to say thank you for following me through this journey, reading the Modern Marvel Cosmic Saga by DNA, start through finish with some additional materials, the Annihilation classic book over here that kicked things off in week 1. If you're interested in more content like this, where I'm reviewing Road to War of Kings or one of the following videos, the War of Kings Omnibus, stay tuned. If you want to jump back, because they're gonna get a reprint here soon, I think in April 2025, Annihilation and Annihilation Conquest gonna get reprinted. So if you want to jump back and watch those videos again, to see if you're interested in any of those omnibuses, please do so. Subscribe to stay up to date on content that's going to come out here weekly. Every Friday there's a new video being published of the Modern Marvel Cosmic Saga, and we're going to continue next week. So like this video if you've made it this far. There must have been something that you were interested in, and I'll see you next week. Until then, this was Literature and Pictures. Take care.